Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Protodead podcast, where anything goes, but with a strong focus on music, movies, books, and video games. Basically, all the forms of media that we love to be entertained by. Please forgive any background noise that you may hear from our microphones, because we are family men, and our families like to play too. I'm Protodead, your host, and my guest today is GN Grizz, my good friend. Me and him like to play some Escape from Tarkov together. That's a video game on the computer, and it's still in early development, and the team, Battlestate Games, or BSG, continues to put out updates. Maybe not as fast as we want them to put them out, and when they do, sometimes it seems like it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes they fix things and then they break things. It's a pain in the ass, and it's a game that we hate to love and love to hate. There's so many different aspects of this complicated genre defining inventing game, Escape from Tarkov. It's supposed to be a thinking man's extraction shooter, a thinking man's tactical team-based, enter the area and execute a task with a team, with your guns and your equipment, and have a struggle and create a little story, for yourself, kind of with some emergent gameplay, and then you make it to the extraction point and you get out, and maybe it's kind of like a Black Hawk Down, or it's like another one of these war movies. It's full of drama and fucking suspense and shit. But oftentimes, it feels like we start the game up and it's just a fucking clown show. It's just a carnival going off, and it's like goofy shit and bugs and it's a real headache with all the stupid stuff, like the broken audio and all sorts of stuff that's going on. So anyway, without further ado, Escape from Tarkov, or EFT. It's a game that we play, and sometimes we have a problem with it. Grizz, is there any problems right now, or is there anything that you'd like to talk about? How's your Escape from Tarkov experience right now?
So experience-wise, I think overall it's gotten better since they updated a lot of the bugs that we were facing. Of course, the bugs are still there. One being the broken audio, because we talked about it a little bit in the last podcast, but I would still rather have the broken Steam audio than this dang Oculus audio. Now they say they're working on it, but I'm pretty sure you mentioned in the last podcast that Oculus audio is not great. A lot of people have had issues with Oculus.
Yeah.
So who knows how long it'll take for them to fix it?
Yeah.
Because right now it's still broken.
Yeah, so as we play this game and we listen to more of how this game develops, I think we both get an education on game development in general, and kind of what developers, when they're creating a game in a studio, you learn more terminologies and concepts and stuff. It's like whenever I played before Escape from Tarkov 7 years ago, I didn't hear things about video game engines, like the engines that developers chose to use, or in this case specifically audio engines or plug-in modules for simulating the occlusion of audio or whatever the hell. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we hear about it seems like as the game's developed and as we're keyed into it, we seem to be also getting an education how games are developed, and it's increasingly I think we both can respect that it's so much more complicated than some people like to imagine.
Yeah, and I think what was it, like 2.5 weeks ago? The podcast with Veritas and Jessica Zam, they brought in a pretty well-known game developer, and he stated the same thing, that a lot of people think that it's really easy, but it's not. Um, he mentioned that there's several times for him as a game developer where he spent 10 hours working and felt like he didn't do a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I get that. I get that it helps me understand that. I think the biggest thing is, and I think it's getting better, is the promises that they've put out and then it doesn't happen. Now, I will say this last wipe, they put out Streets. They had a lot of issues. A lot of issues. And then 2-3 weeks later, they put out a tweet that, hey, we're working on fixing these things. And then within a week and a half, 2 weeks, we actually had progress on that list of things they wanted to fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the first time in Tarkov history.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. It's been increasingly disappointing, and maybe like the player base has Munchausen syndrome, where they're like or like they're supposed to be sick. They believe that they're sick, or maybe it's that whatever it's called whenever a kidnapper kidnaps somebody, and then the kidnapped person begins to sympathize and even like respect and love the person that abducted them.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes the player base is kind of like that. It's like, oh, they're working as hard as they can, and oh, they're trying to do everything. It's for our benefit, And there comes a time where you got to look at it and you got to say, yeah, but these guys they charge, if you want to play the game like it's intended to play, the base standard, it's $150. And they've taken $150 to play a beta in development game. They call it beta. It's really alpha. They've tricked us into paying all this money for this groundbreaking video game. And then they continue to, it seems like they just F off on the other end of the globe, the other side of the globe, with our money. And they say, yeah, we're going to push an update in 3 months. It's going to be great. We're going to have all this cool stuff. And then 3 months comes and goes and we don't get it. And it's like, I think I think the reason why me and you both are passionate about it is because we both kind of been waking up and seeing this, and now we're a little bit more satisfied and impressed when they actually start to turn stuff around and actually hit their deadlines. Or like Streets came out and we were excited about it, but it took how many years? They were promising Streets for like 4 fucking years.
Yeah.
And then, but anyway, so the Streets patch comes out and everybody's like, oh, well, whatever. Streets isn't that impressive. Damn it. Why were we ever wanting this kind of sort of attitude? Like, you can't ever satisfy people. And then there's a lot of problems with the audio, a lot of problems with frame rates on all the maps. And BSG's realized that their current build, they have some stuff to fix. And then, like you said, they put out a tweet and said, hey, we've identified some stuff. We're working on it. A lot of the community members have been fed up at this point, and they put together some really impressive presentations on YouTube. And BSG saw that and then responded super fast and pushed an update that like made the game feel like butter. You remember that couple of raids that we did, and it just felt good.
Yeah, I mean, there had not been, I would say, the times we've played it before this wipe, there's never a time where we went into 4 raids with 3 people, me, you, and Tominator.
Yep.
And at least 2 of us made it out of every raid until this wipe.
Yeah.
Until that update. Until they pushed that update to fix the small issues that plagued the game.
Yeah, man, like movement and ADS time and some recoil, so it didn't like every time you press the trigger on the gun and the gun blasted off its bullet or whatever, you were looking at the sky with almost every single weapon, and it's just ridiculous. And it seemed like they toned all that stuff back. So acquiring a target on the screen was faster, easier, and smoother. And then putting bullets on target, repeat bullets on target, was faster, easier, and smoother. Moving from one point to another point, like from concealment to cover, or from cover to concealment, or whatever, was just faster and just felt better. It was like we were playing a completely different game.
Yeah, I mean, movement alone. So early wipe, this wipe, I think me and you were on Shoreline, and I had a backpack full of stuff. I had a couple guns, and I was so heavy that I could only like slow walk.
Yeah.
But I was only at like 42 kilograms.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that's heavy for what Tarkov considers heavy.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't be moving that slow.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have bitched about the weight system that they implemented, and of course, we all wanted a weight system. But maybe it's toned up a little bit. Maybe it needs to be more forgiving. I think they need to. So they've got to decide how they want to rebalance the weight system. And maybe right now, with all the guys over there doing who knows what, drinking how much vodka and smoking on the Juul vapes or whatever over there, between them partying and whatever else it is that they're doing, they don't have enough time to focus on the weight system right now, I guess.
Well, they did do some changes when they pushed all that.
Yeah.
So now if I have that same weight, I can full walk.
Okay, so that you're saying that they increased the weight limit?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, so there's like 3 thresholds, right? So you're like in the green from 0 to 29, let's say. Maybe it's 29.
And it used to be like the first part of this wipe, it was 22.5.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's so just for anybody listening, it's like you kill people, you take their gun, and maybe they've got cool armor, or maybe they've got a cool helmet, and maybe they had loot in their backpack, because the game is all about loot, right? There's like 1,000 different articles of loot in the loot pools, and everything has its own value. And then so you harvest like a vulture picking over a dead body. You harvest you suck up all their little goodies, and before you know it, everything has a weight, and it all adds up, and now you're overweight, and now you can't turn your body as fast, and you can't walk as fast, and you get tired quicker. So once it goes up into the red, you're basically like what? Like you can't even hardly walk. You gotta almost lay down to recover stamina.
Yeah, and I was in the yellow on that Shoreline raid.
Yeah.
But it was just so off. Like everything was off. And it was mentioned by some people on YouTube. And they decided they wanted to fix it. They wanted to make it better because the movement is not realistic. When you look at, for instance, our U.S. military personnel, when they do their was it rucksack marches or whatever they are?
Yeah.
They're like 90 pounds of gear.
Yeah.
90 to 100 pounds of gear on them. And they're still able to jog and walk for miles. And yet, in the game, this game's supposed to, and I'm just saying this because the game says, oh, it's the most realistic thing on the planet, which it is compared to all the other first-person shooters. It's got a lot of realism.
Yeah, they consider a lot of realism.
But your weight system is not realistic.
No, so I just did a quick calculation on Google. 90 pounds is almost 41 kilograms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine carrying around 90 pounds for a fit individual who's training to carry that is basically like it's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, they do like 26, 27 mile rucksack marches. As their PT or their physical training.
Yikes. Yeah, I would definitely like to hear a streamer that's been in the army or been in the military in America play this game and just talk about how stuff just doesn't make any sort of sense.
Yeah.
Because, Battlestate Games they have prided themselves, they've advertised them trying to make the most realistic military simulator first-person shooter RPG, ever before.
So, but besides all that, I mean, I honestly think the game currently, just the game, not anything else,
Yeah.
is in probably the best state it's been in probably since probably 2018, 2019.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Now there are some things in the background that are getting kind of annoying and really out of hand.
Like what?
Good old RMT.
RMT.
And what they're doing to try to prevent it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's jump into that. So, I'll set you up and you knock it down. That we talked last time about their quest to mitigate RMT or real money trading continues to break the immersion of their realistic, quote unquote, realistic game. So, they advertise their game as being a squad based, video game where you're supposed to team up with your friends or team up with other people to formulate a plan to go into a map or go into a location and execute a mission. And you're supposed to be like operators, just like we see military movies now where it's like the SEAL team and they fucking talk and code and, they know what's going on and all this other shit. That's what BSG wants the gameplay to be like for us. But then they make changes like to in a quest to mitigate the real money trading and the cheating. They put limits on us that then adversely affects that vision. Like you can't sell things on the flea market, the open market. That's supposed to be like a capitalist system. There's certain things you can't sell there. You can't go into a raid and help a buddy out so he can be a better operator or a better team member. You can't give him a piece of equipment or give him. There's almost nothing you can drop anymore. It either deletes or you get now the new thing. Is BSG has got a tracking system where if you give players other stuff, you get banned from the game that you paid money for.
Yeah, and it's not only is it a ban, but it's a complete reset of your account. And the most recent to this is a group of streamers and content creators that are actually in Tarkov's like content creator Discord, like specifically meant for just content creators, people that have been playing the game for years nonstop.
Yeah, live on Twitch,
and got banned because I think either they dropped stuff to each other, like for instance, here's a good example. When you die and you're playing with a group, a lot of times those people in that group are like, hey, I'll grab your stuff, I'll bring it into you next raid.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that way you're equipped to continue to work and do the task, and you don't have to wait on the insurance to bring your gun back if you're rolling the dice, rolling the dice to see if Scavs doesn't come up and find your shit and walk off with it. You want to get back into the fight as quick as possible.
So, they come into the raid, they drop you all your gear, your helmet, your vest, your armor, your gun, magazines, ammo, all of it.
Sure.
Well, with what they're doing now, you can get banned for doing that. You can get banned for legitimately just helping your buddy.
Your teammate.
And not by dropping high-value gear, like a GPU or something like that.
Yeah, just to give them money so that they can do whatever with it.
But just to give them their gear back.
Yeah. Oh, man, it's disgusting.
And then one peg mentioned in a recent video that, for instance, like I do it all the time. I hop into like Jesse Kazam's Discord server and I find a group to play with because there's times where I'm playing late at night, and the friends I play with aren't on late at night. Well, BSG has mentioned if you get into a lobby and you're playing with someone who is a known RMTer, you can get banned just for grouping up with that RMTer.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. If they know he's an RMTer, how is he not banned?
Yeah, why is he not banned? So what you're describing is the game tries to advertise and promote that they want this to be a squad-based game. When you go in and play as a PMC faction, you group up with other players. Sometimes it's your buddies that you know in real life. Sometimes it's people you met on the internet. Sometimes it's people that's just in a Discord looking for a group, and you'll never play with those folks again, except for this handful of hours maybe that you're glued to the computer. So randomly, you can queue up into there's even a group system in the game. Like you can I'm looking for group, and just people randomly in your region you can invite to a group, and then use VoIP to talk as you play the game, and that's kind of the way the game's supposed to be played, is using VoIP in the in-game built-in voice commands. But you have no way to know if the guy you're teaming up with is shady. And if he's shady, BSG has decided, because you decided to group up with a shady guy, you're going to get banned. That's bullshit. That completely dismantles their whole idea of this being a team-based game. Because now you can't run the risk of teaming up with any fucking body, because BSG will decide with their flawed system that they're going to ban you. It's ridiculous.
Yep. And then it's like, we all know BSG's customer service sucks.
They don't even have one.
But with the content creator side of things, they've always had kind of like a direct route to the developers, like when they get banned or whatever, to help them get their account back. Going. But with this, those two streamers that recently got banned, they can't get their it's not going to happen.
So these, even though like we've seen streamers like Anton is a big streamer, he got banned for RMT because he got banned for RMT. Woke up one day, he was banned. He was like, "What the f? Like, I'm a Twitch streamer. I stream every day. Like, what are you talking about? Why am I banned?" He contacted somebody at BSG. They took the time out of their day to look into it. Turns out he was in a raid with a cheater, an RMTer, and a person buying the RMT stuff. He walked up, found them doing the transaction, and killed them. He didn't know they were doing a transaction. He killed both of them, he picked up the shit, and he got out of the raid with it. He got banned for that. Obviously, he's collateral damage, but he was a streamer who got all of his shit back. He got his account back, he got, hit that $150 buy-in for the thing. We don't have that ability. If I were to get banned today because I killed an RMTer and took his shit out of raid, if I got banned, I would never get my money back. I would never get my account back because I don't have a voice.
Yeah, you would have to literally buy another account.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, Pestilly is a good Tarkov streamer.
Yeah, he's helped the community out with his guides a lot.
He started streaming Tarkov. Like that's when he went into streaming, that's what he started, and he's not stopped.
Yes.
Regardless of how the game's been, regardless of how crappy it's been.
Yeah.
He hasn't stopped. But he's got multiple accounts because he never knows when he might get a ban for not doing anything, not cheating, not doing RMT, but just because Tarkov is Tarkov. The developers, this came up and we talked about it last podcast. If you kill a developer in game, there's a chance you're going to get banned because they think you're cheating. Yeah, because they think they're the best at the game and no one could be better than them.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. That's an ego problem.
And then because they banned you and they reset your account, you're fucked. You put in
Who knows how many hours? Yeah.
Hours to get to level 45, level 50. And, well, now you're at level 1 with no gear.
Yeah.
All because someone got their butt hurt.
Yeah, man. These people doing the emissaries or the Sherpas or the developers playing the game, none of those folks should ever have the sole decision to ban any one person, because people are flawed and people's opinions about reality, objective reality, is completely flawed, because you're perceiving the entire world through your biased senses, all 600 senses that you've got. And every one of them is lying to you. Your eyeballs are an illusion. And these people trust that thing because these people think that they're brilliant, and they're not. And then they make stupid mistakes, and then they double down. They ban people, and then they say, well, it doesn't matter because they were cheating. It's like, no, this person, you banned them when they were on stream. They weren't doing anything wrong. All they did was pick up an RMT or stuff after they killed them, and you banned them for it. There's no recourse.
Yeah, and I know their development team, and their team is super small.
Yeah.
But at some point, if you want this game to succeed, you've got to start working on that kind of stuff, because banning legitimate players for helping their friends out with, for instance, say I come into raid, I find a GPU, I pick it up, and then I'm like, hey, do you need a GPU? And I drop it to you. You can actually get banned for RMTing for doing that.
Yeah, I think I heard about that the other day. So
one peg mentioned it in his video.
So even if it's in the same raid, because you picked up the item and then dropped it to somebody else, that could be considered RMT?
Yeah, that is what one peg mentioned. And that's in there. Again, me and you won't know about that, because that's something that was mentioned in that content creator Discord that only a select group of people have access to.
Oh, I see.
So
the Discord is the vehicle in which they're telling these are the new rules, and we the average players, it's not like this information is on the splash screen on the game when you fire it up. The game doesn't tell you these rules. You just have to know them.
Yeah, and it's specifically, it was sent to content creators because I guess they're trying to crack down on the content creators that are cheating. But what about the average player? The average player needs to know these things as well.
Yeah, man. I think so. This is a big problem with communication and inherent things that you can glean from the game, and this can apply to anything, but it should be a natural process, like the way things work. You shouldn't have to do a bunch of mental gymnastics to understand the mechanics or the play rules of any sort of thing that you're playing. If they want specific gameplay, then they need to build their game that supports that gameplay, or does not promote the negative gameplay that they don't want. They just have to. It shouldn't be just a rule that you have to. Somebody has to tell you what the rule is. For instance, the whole bringing something into raid and dropping it. This game is all about loot, right? It's all about going in, killing enemies, or, what you think are enemies. Going in there, taking the loot, taking it out of raid, extracting with it, turning it into the traders to increase whatever, loyalty, and bring yourself up. Sell the items maybe, so you can take that money and turn into better equipment, better gear, or better items that advance your economy, your own personal economy, so you can become stronger and you can move faster and all sorts of other stuff like that. Like containers help you hold more shit for later. Anyway, so the whole thing's about loot. You go in, you do the activity, you kill the enemies, you get the loot, you get out, you turn the loot into money, or you turn the loot into better items. When you are playing with a buddy and your buddy says, like we had the other day, something about a light bulb, or maybe I need a spark plug, or maybe I need a rechargeable battery, or whatever, a water filter. There's thousands of items in the game, and you're like, damn, man, I've been coming across a lot of those. It's no skin off my back for me to bring one into you and throw it down, and you can take it. And then that way, that's our mission that we created. We have to go into a location to do it, and we both have to extract and, whatever. This game says, no. As soon as you go to drop that item, it will just disappear and vaporize from the world. It is so stupid. You wouldn't know that unless you've experienced it, or if you've experienced it, you have to do it again and again before you're like, where the fuck did the item go? Did it fall through the world? Did we encounter a bug? I don't know. But you go to right click, drop item, and it deletes it, and you say, why the fuck is it deleting the item? Oh, it's because BSG wants to keep RMT down. They want to, they want to crack down on the cheaters. That's the reason why I can't share an item with my teammate who I'm trying to help survive in this hardcore post-apocalyptic sort of game. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And it's funny you bring up like the spark plug and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've been looking for spark plugs recently.
Yeah.
And you found a couple in Raid given to me. But now with the way they're trying to crack down on it, you would honestly just have to leave it wherever you found it. Let me know where it's at. And then I could go grab it.
Yeah.
Because you could get banned. So it's just like, how is that even fair?
Yeah.
That you're just trying to help me out.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. So the gameplay, there's nothing in the gameplay that tells you that that's the way it's supposed to work. Somebody either has to tell you that's the rules, and if you don't follow the rules, then you run the risk of getting banned from the game. The game, they don't tell you, they don't have a splash screen that comes up when you fire the game up that you have to click through that specifically says, hey, alert, read these rules below. These are the things that we've changed in the past recent. You need to adhere to these rules because we're trying to crack down on cheating and RMT, and this is the only way that we know how to effectively do it. So do not share items with your buddies that you have from your stash. Do not pick up items in the world and then drop them to your buddy because your buddy wants the item instead. Do not... what's another one? Do not bring your buddy's raid gear from the last raid where they died into the next raid for him. That none of that stuff makes any fucking sense. They need to solve their cheating and RMT problem another way. They either need to have active people looking at raids and looking at people that are suspected of cheating. Because this right here, all it does is damage the normal players. This sort of stuff right here, it takes you out of the game. It ruins your immersion. It makes you not even want to interact with the game with these goofy rules. They continue to compound the rules too. They've changed found in raid items. They've changed what you can sell on the flea market. They've changed that you can't even sell, like how you sell things on the flea market. Then they changed that you can't sell certain items on the flea market. Then they changed you can't sell items to traders and you can only sell them to fence, and who doesn't give you very much money for it. And all that stuff was to combat RMT. And really, I don't know how big of an impact it makes, but it seems like it just continues to hurt the normal, everyday, legitimate players. And I'm just sick of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Next bullet point.
What do you got? What are some of your gripes with the game?
Well,
we talked about some of mine. Let's talk about some of yours.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing that I really wanted to talk about was just asking the question, do the AI bots, the bots that we face in the game, the computer enemies, do they suffer from the same simulation that we do? I personally don't think so. I threw a number out, I say 90%. So, just to give a quick rundown here. Humans have thirst and hunger to manage, and that will kill us in the raid very quickly. Currently, right now, we bitched about it last podcast, but it will adversely also affect our movement and vision. We get broken bones, bleeding, and other medical statuses that affects our movement and vision and may lead to death if we don't take care of it. Humans have a weight system that negatively impacts their movement. Humans also have a limited supply of bullets in their magazines or otherwise to fight with from their guns. Humans have guns that are affected by the geometry in the world. If we get too close to a wall or to cover, the gun is pushed and moved and pulled into our body and influenced in such a way where it changes the trajectory of our bullets, because in this game the bullets are simulated coming from the receiver out the barrel of the gun, as opposed to it just being some sort of magical bullet that comes out of nowhere. And we can't see through bushes. Bots can see through not only bushes, but they can see through walls. And there's been plenty of streamers that showcase this. We have to make it to an extraction point before the end of the raid timer for whatever fucking reason. And the AI doesn't care about the raid timer. They'll stay in the raid. And if you stay in the raid, you go MIA, you lose all your gear, and you basically die the worst death ever. Because every raid's like 45 minutes long. But if you stay 45 minutes and 3 seconds, then, whoops. It's like you slip into a void, into a coma, and it's like horrible for you. But the AI, they don't have to run to an extraction point. They don't have to get out. So they can be there fighting you as you're leaving, and it's just ridiculous. When's the last time you saw an AI bot ever get a weapon malfunction and have to clear a jam in a firefight?
I have never seen that.
Never. You've never seen it.
And scavs have we all know scavs guns are not great. They're all at like 50% durability or less, but weapon malfunctions happen at 90 or less. So how do they not have a weapon malfunction?
Yeah, that's definitely an astute observation. So the scavs are supposed to be a faction in the game, which is like downtrodden civilians that either got trapped in this fucked up zone, this lawless zone called Tarkov. They either get trapped there, or they get left behind, or maybe they're a criminal element and they didn't really want to leave, and they saw an opportunity to loot and become kings in their own right, so they stayed behind in this cordoned off area called Tarkov. And they scavenge any sort of equipment that they can so they can survive. They're supposed to be just like us. We're a player PMC, and we're scratching out a living. We're trying to live in this war-torn area. They're the same thing, except they have an above-ground home that they live in. Maybe it's a building, or maybe it's a bigger point of interest or something that they kind of live in. These guys have fucked up guns just like we have fucked up guns, or lower durability or whatever. You can get into a firefight with a scav in a location, and he can shoot and almost hit every single shot on target, like a Terminator. And if you survive that encounter with them, you'll find that if you juke them, if you jive, if you hide, if you pop off a few rounds and move and relocate, and the scav has expended 40 bullets from their weapon. You can then kill them, walk up to them, and find full magazines on their person, not an empty magazine that to be found. So they have an infinite supply of bullets. Their magazines come from a completely different inventory on their person, the way the video game works. So the magazines that are in their chest rig are pretty much there for us to loot. They're not simulated in their gun. Their magazines come from a completely separate hidden inventory that the scavs have, so they have an infinite supply of bullets. Then if you kill them, you pick up their gun, and their gun has 50% durability, which should basically mean the gun jams like every third or fourth shot or whatever, something like that. Every 10th shot maybe. And you have to clear that you shooting the gun have to clear the jam when it happens, but the scav didn't have a fucking problem. Not one problem the whole time he was shooting those 40 bullets at you. And that shit just grinds my gears, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it shouldn't be that way. I guess I have noticed, after me and you had that conversation the other day, that a scav that I have killed, I think there's only been one time where their magazine that's in the gun is completely empty, but every mag in their chest rig is completely full.
Yeah.
So, and you could tell when their mag's empty because they kind of they stop trying to chase you. They kind of start backing up, trying to reload.
Well, yeah, they'll reload, but so BSG has pushed an update. Maybe it's fairly recently where they try to simulate that the scavs are using the bullets out of their chest rig, but I don't believe that it is simulated 100%. It's not accurate because scavs never run out of bullets. They never run dry. Do AI bots suffer from the same simulation? We're talking about scavs, rogues, the scav bosses on each of the maps. They're goons that patrol with them. The whatever, man. The raiders, the cult, whatever. All these different factions that they've created as enemies for us, which we need more of, and we need them to be unique in their own right. They don't suffer from the same simulation that BSG is imposing on us to play by. And make no mistake, they do want this to be a simulation. There is a reason why the game is so complex. There's a reason why you can't have everything, keep everything, use all the equipment, carry all the guns, have all the ammo. There's a reason why you can't do all of the things. And it's because there's too much going on. So BSG loved Stalker. Stalker was a very influential video game when it came out of Ukraine back in 2006, 2007, maybe it was 2005. It was the first ever role-playing game, first-person shooter, and that game had a lived-in world. It felt like it was alive. There was NPCs that moved from one zone to another on a patrol route or on an expedition. The roaming enemies and stuff would camp and sleep, and sometimes, the animal, the wildlife, would attack them, and you would see two different factions, warring with each other. It had nothing to do with you. So they ran out of bullets. The enemy's armor got wore down. The enemy ate and drank, sat around campfires. They talked with each other. This game, Stalker, and its subsequent sequels, and the most recent Anomaly patch, or Anomaly mod, I should say, and then the super great Gamma mod that's come out, and then now the upcoming Stalker 2 is gonna continue to blow gamers away with their simulation of the world. And BSG wants Escape from Tarkov to feel like that simulated world, except for some reason they don't know how to execute it. It's like they want to paint a beautiful picture like Picasso or Monet or one of these other, influential painters, but they don't know how to use oil paint, or they don't know how to use the different paint brushes to achieve an effect. They just slap paint on the canvas and say, yeah, that's a beautiful painting, all right. So do AI bots suffer from the same simulation? No, they don't. Humans have hunger and thirst to manage, and that if we start to starve and if we start to dehydrate, we start taking damage from that. And then also we get tunnel vision. We have a vignetting effect that happens on the screen that makes it hard for us to see. There's an effect of blurriness where like things go quickly in and out of focus. Makes it hard for us to acquire targets in the bush or in the weeds or whatever. I don't believe that the AI has hunger and thirst, and if they go long enough without eating or drinking, they don't have any negative effect. That's only us, the players. If we play as a scav faction, it still happens to us, human players. Doesn't happen to AI. There are animations that you'll see the AI walking around and they'll pull out a drink and drink it, but that's just an animation to make us feel like it's a lived-in world. It's not actually being simulated. They pull this food out and eat it. It's out of that hidden inventory. It doesn't come out of their backpack, actually. It doesn't come out of their chest rig, actually. It comes out of this hidden inventory. So basically, it's like the command says, if Scav has walked back and forth in this straight line 3 times and squatted and spun around 180 degrees, then then do this. Pull out juice box and drink it. So, do we have broken bones? We get bleeding. I mean, does the AI have broken bones and bleeding? Yes. I believe that they have bleeding. I don't think they have broken bones. I could be wrong about that. I have seen scavs move very, very slow. So the broken bone thing could be a broken leg or a broken, it would just be a broken leg. Or it could be a blacked out limb. But I don't really know. There's nothing that's ever indicated to me that the scavs suffer from blacked out limbs like we do. So when we lose enough bleeding, when we lose enough blood or whatever in each one of our limbs, it goes black. And once it goes black, we have a whole host of new negative status effects on our body that we have to manage or fight through to get to the extraction point. I've seen scavs slow down, so I think there's a chance that it's a broken bone or it might be a blacked out limb. They definitely bleed. I've seen scavs bleed. They'd leave blood on the ground, and I do believe that the bleeding impacts their health. So, I've seen a scav. I've played as a player scav. I've walked up to a scav that was hacking. And so he's sitting there alive, but he's breathing all ragged and he's coughing. And he'll just all of a sudden and then keel over and die. I'm pretty sure it's because he was bleeding, So as every time he bleeds out some squirt of blood, he's losing some health. And maybe that scav got into a firefight with the PMC. Maybe the scav won, the PMC or player scav. The human player, died. Then that scav then suffered, didn't have anything to patch himself up with, and then suffered the effects and succumbed to his wounds, minutes later. So I have seen that. So that's the reason earlier when I said 90% sure, I think this is the only thing that I can say. That's the 10% that they are affected by is some of the medical effects. But when the medical effects happen to the scavs, do I believe that it affects their vision? No, I don't. I believe it affects their movement. And it does lead to death if they can't patch up. And I have seen scavs use medical items. I've seen bosses use medical items for sure, like Reshala or Glucar. But does it affect their vision, making it harder for them to acquire us as a target and shoot at us? No, I don't believe it does. I believe their vision is still Terminator vision. So the weight system negatively impacts our movement, but scavs really don't loot the world very much, and if they do, they don't come anywhere close to hitting the weight limit as far as I can tell. If they do spawn in with heavy helmets, heavy armor, and heavy gun and whatever, if they do come close to that weight limit, I don't think that the game cares. I think they still have the same freedom of movement that they would have if they had nothing on. I'm going to go ahead and just hit this geometry thing. Oh, this is another part of that 10%. So our guns are affected by the geometry. If you can carry a gun into a close quarters combat situation and your gun hits the wall, you'll see your gun pull back into your armpit kinda, and then you'll push your gun closer to your chest. And if you pull the trigger, your gun will fire in that random direction. So if a scav gets up in your face and your gun gets pushed out of the way, then you can be firing, but you won't be firing and hitting the scav. The scavs are definitely subject to that same phenomenon. I've gotten up in a scav's face and the scav just fired his gun and it just hit the walls and the floor and the ceiling. So their barrels, their gun barrels are influenced by the same geometry as us. So that's one of the only simulated part of the what am I trying to say here? Grizz, help me out.
I think what you're trying to say too.
So I'm saying that out of all the different things, I think AI bots are only affected by bleeding, broken bones, and they're only affected by their gun getting pushed and influenced by something being in the way of their gun handling. And I think that's it.
Yeah, because I don't think they have broken bones. I know they can die from bleeding.
Yeah.
We know that for a fact.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll die from eating or drinking.
No, I don't think so.
But as we all know, the scavs, they want to make the scavs so complex, but they've already mentioned that they can't do that yet. That's a lot of coding. That's why they have that button that they just press. Oh, make the scavs harder. Oh, make them easier, because they've had that issue here recently where they buffed the scavs so hard that, like you said, they could see us through a wall. They could see us through a bush.
Yeah.
And you best believe one shot is all it took for them to kill you 99% of the time.
Yeah. Yes. Scavs, that's part of the reason why people are so frustrated with scavs, is because they know that there's something wrong, but they don't necessarily know how to articulate what they think is wrong with the AI bots. And I think this right here is a big part of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So we've all been shot from scavs through cover. So we're like, we got a bush between us, or maybe two bushes between us and the scav, and the scav can see us because they're using Terminator vision, quote unquote, video game field of view vision, whatever ray casting that they have coded in. And the scav can shoot through the bush and hit us and kill us, and we can't see them to shoot back because we have the JPEG or the whatever it's called, bushes that are in the way. And that feels bad and it sucks and I hate it, and they need to figure out a way to fix that, because scavs should act more like the enemies in first person, single player only games, where the big obstacle is that these scavs, there's a lot more of them than there are of you. So I talk about Far Cry being one of these games that kind of does the AI right. It's because you are meant to go in there and be able to kill, if you're careful, you can kill all of them. Maybe there's 10 or 14 of them. But if you play stupid, and if you make too many mistakes, and if you get out in the open, and if you try to take too many of them on at a time, then you're going to get got. You're going to die. But the reason why it feels fair playing a game like Stalker or a game like Far Cry or something like that is because the AI is simulated to be just a little bit dumber than you are. And that makes it feel fair.
But still difficult enough that because I watched some of your your videos on the recent Gamma
Yeah.
update, I think.
Yeah. So,
Um, there's times where you died, but it was because of how many enemies you were facing, not because you run into one little lonely scav who sees you through a bush, you don't see him, and
hmm
he just shoots you and you're dead.
right.
It was because you ran up on a group of enemies, they got the better of you, and you died.
Right.
It wasn't, oh, well, how the hell did I die?
Yeah. Or it didn't feel, it doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it feels really, really bad when there's no way for you to answer the question, whenever a scav chirps, and then there's a scav, and you look around and you look and you can't see one, and you try to figure out a place to run to get behind cover, and then bang, you're dead. That's not fun gameplay.
Yeah.
That's not interesting gameplay. That's not hardcore gameplay. That's just stupid. Now, if this is a player that you're playing against, the player's not going to chirp. You're not going to know he's there. He's not going to say something in the game unless, he's really comfortable and he's just a streamer and he wants to play around. But for the large part, you're just going to get bullets. You're going to get hit by bullets, and you're going to have to figure out a way to deal with it. So in this game, when you're fighting the AI, it should be more like judo, where the AI does something, and then you have there's like a conversation. Like the AI does something, and then you have a handful of things, tactics in your tool belt. Like, okay, am I going to flank? Am I going to throw a grenade to get them to move? Am I going to charge them face first and see if I can stand up, fight them? Like how are you gonna do this? And then you do the thing, and then they have to answer you back. They do something else. Maybe they elevate. Maybe they change weapons and use a different gun. Whatever. Maybe they throw a smoke. AI doesn't throw smokes. There should be like a conversation between the players and AI, and it should be, if you lose, it should be either A, like completely random because everything's simulated that you lost, or it should be because you made a bunch of dumb movements in a row. You said all the wrong things in the conversation, and then you got, the conversation was ended by the scab, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I wish they could fix it. I just don't know if they have that in their wheelhouse, honestly.
Yeah, so it takes smart people doing smart coding to make that happen. And maybe they're really smart at designing firearms in the world. Maybe they're really smart at animating stuff and considering all the nuances of firearms. And maybe they're just really fucking dumb when it comes to smart gameplay.
Yeah, because it's definitely a coding thing, and we all know their the way their guns look and the way their gun simulations work, absolutely phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, that
Best.
the only issue I have with their animation with guns is the recoil, and a lot of that is the scopes. You put a scope on your gun, well, as we all know, when you have recoil on a gun, it's not just the gun moving; your whole body moves with the gun.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the way Tarkov simulates it, it's like your body doesn't move because you just all of a sudden can't see through the scope because the recoil is so bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like your body's not moving with it, just the gun.
Yeah.
Well, that's not realistic because
Yeah.
I've seen so many videos on the internet of people having a fully automatic weapon without nearly as many attachments as we do in Tarkov,
Yeah.
and recoil is very, very minimal.
Yeah. Yeah. They probably should rework their recoil, and I think they've toned it down. I think they pushed an update recently that made it feel a lot better. But they need to figure out a way to balance that a different way. So when they talk about their guns needing to be realistic, if they made every gun almost like a laser beam, like people like to say, then it would be hard. I don't know, man. Like, it would be harder for people to to survive, there wouldn't be a conversation between players. You know, it would be just like the person that sees the other guy first is going to be the winner because he's going to be able to get 16 bullets into that person before that person can answer. But with the recoil being turned up to 11, the recoil going, you know, taking so long for the person to reacquire the target, that gives the other player enough time to react and then answer the conversation with his own movement. How do they fix that? I don't know. I don't know another way to extend the firefights out. Oh, no, I do actually. You make them less accurate. Yeah, you make the guns less accurate as opposed to being higher recoil.
Yeah, leave the recoil where it should be because it's really hard to kill someone when you can't see them through a scope.
Yeah, but you should be able to see people through the scope and pull the trigger, and the scope doesn't go at the sky. But whenever you pull the trigger and the bullet is simulated leaving the barrel, it shouldn't exactly hit right on target every time. Maybe.
Nope.
Okay, so maybe what the fix would be is everybody's hands are much more shaky all the time. Like, not just like say bullet deviation from the barrel. So every gun has a little bit of, depending on the wind influencing the projectile in the air and how far away you're shooting and stuff like that. Like that can influence where it lands on the target, right? Mm-hmm. If you have your gun completely clamped in a vise and the gun absolutely does not move, your blood pressure's not influencing it, your breathing's not influencing it, whatever, those bullets can still deviate, you know, at 50 yards a little bit. But maybe the game should widen that dispersal cone, and they have a name for it. I forget what it's called, but it's like the cone of kind of where the bullets will hit outside the crosshair. Mm-hmm. Maybe they should jack up just how shaky you are, like just holding the gun. Like maybe your blood pressure should be higher and be influencing the gun, and your breathing should be influencing the way you hold the gun more, so you're constantly swaying and it's fucking hard to get the target on people before you pull the trigger. And maybe that would feel shitty to some people, but maybe that's the fix.
Yeah. I think it would make it better because, you know, the game, as far as the gunfights go, have gotten better. Mm-hmm. For sure. But yeah. Like, for instance, that raid we played the other day where you died in woods and I killed the guy that got you, and I picked up his gun, took it, ran into another player. Well, I died because I couldn't see through the scope once I started shooting.
Yeah. So, yeah, it narrows your field of vision and all sorts of stuff.
Because it went black. Like, it would back, and then it would pop up, and then go black, and...
Oh, yeah, because every time you pull the trigger, your eyeball would come away from the scope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Feels gross.
And, you know, when you're running a bigger scope like that, it shouldn't be that difficult. Because when you're running like a EOTech sight, for instance, you don't ever get a black screen or black optic from the recoil on those. Which I know they're not as long. They're not a 7x zoom scope, but it really shouldn't be that hard to keep a target in a scope.
Well, yes, I do agree. Yeah, they should probably focus on that and see if they can implement a fix for that. I'm sure some people out there will disagree, and if anybody disagrees with us, if you're hearing this right now, just go ahead and plop a comment down below and maybe change my mind.
Have a conversation.
Yeah, have a conversation. Yeah, welcome to hear any point of view on the subject. So story time. Do you have a story you would like to share, Mr. GN Grizz?
trying to think of a good one. I don't have one now.
Oh, come
But
on.
I will come prepared for the next podcast.
Oh, no, come on. You got something. Give me something. Anything.
Something. Well, man, you're making me think really good this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of story are we trying to go for here? I think that's the biggest thing.
Okay, cool. So I got a story. I saw a guy die on a motorcycle.
Oh.
All right. So yeah. So let me tell a story. See if you can come up with one. So there was a guy. I found out later his last name was Kidd, Kidd. Let me set the scene here. There was two vehicles. We were traveling on Route 66, and we were going to the Omniplex. At the time, it was called the Omniplex. It's called the Science Museum now in Oklahoma City, and back in the 70s, it was called the Epcot Center. So this place is a science center that we go to see all the cool science stuff, maybe once every 3 years or so. And it was about time for us to do that again. I was maybe, I don't know, maybe 13 years old, I think. I was fairly young. Two vehicles. So my parents were riding in one vehicle and they had some kids with them, cousins and, nephews and whatever. And then I was riding with my sister in the following vehicle and she was driving and we had a couple of kids, with us in the vehicle. We rounded a curve. There was like it's like not quite a 90-degree curve. It's maybe more like a 45-degree curve on Route 66. And, there was this guy on a motorcycle. It was like a Harley-style motorcycle or whatever. We hit the curve at the same time, and this guy on the motorcycle was probably going a little bit too fast. And he didn't lean with the curve like maybe he should have kind of leaned a little bit to the left. He was coming the opposite direction. And he swung out to the shoulder of the road. And along the shoulder of the road, that's where some road debris and stuff kind of gather. Gets kicked off of the main road, like dirt and small rocks. And yes. And I saw his front wheel hit that, and his whole motorcycle started to warble, like he hit glass or ice. And he slid on that stuff all the way to the guardrail. And this guy hits the guardrail. Bike immediately ejects straight up in the air, probably 20 feet. And it flips end over end, maybe 10 times. Feels like maybe 10 times. And, it collided, it smashed to the ground and just slid, sparks flying everywhere. This guy, human, hits the guardrail, immediately starts cartwheeling on the steel I-beams that back the guardrail. So he cartwheels on these things and then splat hits the pavement and then slides like 10 feet to a stop. And as soon as this happened, I said, "God fucking damn it," like screamed really loud. Everybody hits their brakes. We pull over. And I remember when he hit the pavement and he slid, and when he stopped sliding, his whole body recoiled back and jiggled, because he slid and then stopped just like you would imagine. Anyway, so we all got out, ran across the road. My mom flipped him over, tried to do CPR on the guy. This dude had both of his arms were mangled. One arm was almost completely off. I remember specifically his foot was ripped off at the ankle, and he had a very narrow strip of flesh connecting his foot to his leg. Like, it was almost completely off. The bone sticking out was kind of pink. I mean, it was white, but it was kind of pink, never meant to see the sun. His knee was ripped off, like at the knee, like leg ripped off, head, cranium cracked, brain leaking out. This guy was dead. No helmet. No, he had street clothes on.
Oh my gosh.
No, yeah, this guy was dead before he hit the pavement, because when he was cartwheeling on the I-beams, he was just getting minced, man. He was getting absolutely thrashed, ripped. Like when people say ripped limb from limb, dude, this guy, when he hit the ground, he had like barely, his body was barely being connected. I'm pretty sure that one of his arms was only connected to his body still because it was kind of just wound up in the shirt. Like it actually wasn't connected to his torso at all. His hand was broke and like ripped open, lacerations all over the place. Anyway, so I'm standing over this guy, and my mom's trying to do CPR on him, like the CPR is going to save him because his brain's cracked. You know, his head's cracked, his brain's leaking out. I remember counting 7 rivers, inch-wide rivers of blood flowing from this guy's body down the slope of remember we were on a curve, so it flowed to the north. It flowed downhill to the north. And it was just like every bit of blood was just running out of this guy. It was insane. Like fresh blood like that is the brightest red against the black asphalt. It was so bright. And my dad is kind of like standing over my mom, saying things like, "Why do you think you're doing that? You're not going to do anything. You know, why are you down there doing this? You're wasting your time." You know, it was brutal, man. It was so fucking brutal. I think.
Yeah, I mean, with that much blood running out, even if you could keep his heart rate where it's at, he'll die from blood loss before paramedics ever get there.
Yeah, no, he was already dead. He was dead before he hit the pavement. There was no amount of medical intervention that was going to save this guy's life. He had done, you know, it was over. Poor guy. It was brutal, dude. It was so fucking brutal. It was heinous. Oh man. And just to see him get ripped up in front of, like, we saw the whole thing, and then we stopped and was like standing around his body. Like I was as close to his body as I am to this computer right now that I'm sitting in front of. And so we stuck around long enough for the ambulance to come by, and we gave a statement or whatever, and then we left and went to the Omniplex. And dude, let me tell you, there's nothing at the Omniplex that can wash the images out of your mind. Like every little thing, you know, that's supposed to be brilliant and wondrous at the Omniplex, it was just like as soon as you experience it, you're like, yeah, but we just saw that guy die on that motorcycle. You know.
So I have a story now that I've thought about it. So it's kind of similar, but I didn't actually see the events unfold like you did.
Yeah.
I saw all of the aftermath.
Okay.
So this is when I was probably 17, 18, in high school, when I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada. So my grandparents lived with us at this time, and my grandpa was one of those, he liked to get up early and go to breakfast, and I just happened to wake up early. I was never that high school student that could sleep in till 10:30, 11 o'clock on the weekends.
Yeah.
I was always up 5:30, 6 o'clock. So he's like, "Hey, you want to go grab something to eat?" Everyone else is still sleeping. I'm like, "Sure, let's go get some breakfast." So we went and got breakfast, and then on our way back, we noticed a wrecked Mustang. There was no cops yet. There's nothing. A wrecked Mustang. It looks like it left the road. And do you know those like big, heavy duty metal, like 4 foot by 4 foot by 3 foot tall, like electrical boxes? Like they're just massive hunks of metal on the side of the road.
I believe so. Yeah.
So they left the road and hit that. Well, the car was empty. Look, there's nothing in the car, no one in the car. So we're just like, okay, they must have hit it. They were drunk. They don't want to get in trouble. They left. Well, we kept driving, and about a quarter mile up the road, there's a body in the gutter.
Oh.
So of course we stopped. We called 911, and this is only like probably less than a quarter mile away from our house. Cop showed up. the person didn't die instantly when they hit that. And it was actually determined to be a suicide. Or it started out as an attempted suicide that turned into suicide. Um, there was the cop said there was a letter in the car. Like, they gave us a lot of information afterwards. Well, they hit it going about 85 miles an hour. And I mean, those boxes aren't designed to move. And the box didn't move. It
Yeah.
might have crumpled a little bit, but it did way more damage to the car than that car did to the box. um, they actually got out of the car and were walking up the street.
Mm.
And then the blood loss and probably even other things going on.
Blunt force trauma.
They died and keeled over and landed in the gutter of the street.
Wow.
And it's, again, being 17, 18 years old, and that's how your day starts.
Yeah.
It makes it really hard, like you said, to concentrate on anything else.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to get that out of your head.
Right.
Well, I actually walked that route probably all the time to get back and forth to work. And man, it was months before the dried blood on the concrete ever went away. Because you could literally see the scrapes in the concrete from where they hopped the curb and ran into that box.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could see the blood trail from there to where the body was found. For
Damn.
months, it was like that. And it was just a constant, every time I walked by, it was just a constant reminder that I saw this thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it happen. But it's also like how many people drove by, because they said they'd been dead for a couple hours. So
Right.
it's like how many people drove by and just assumed, like we did at first, that, oh, it's just someone ran into it. They probably got drunk. They don't want to get in trouble. Because that happens all the time. I see it here in Oklahoma City all the time.
Yeah. Or not my problem. I'm not getting involved.
Yeah. But, and then no one noticed the body in the road because they were either not observant or they just thought it was trash or whatever the case may be. But it's like so many people drove by this before someone realized that it was a dead body and it was related to that accident.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose the dead should be treated with respect, and it's hard to imagine that somebody would notice somebody being a deceased human, in the ditch, and then telling themselves, "I'm not equipped to deal with this right now. I'm not going to alert anybody. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. I'm going to say that was just a pile of trash," and then just keep on going with their day. But there's people out there that would do that.
Oh yeah, there is. 100%.
Yeah, how heinous. Did you see the face, or was it just the back?
I saw the back. I didn't. They literally fell face forward, face down into the gutter.
Wow. Was there blood everywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, the blood it was on a hill, so again, like I said, the blood, you could see it. It just drained down into the gutter and just was going down.
Yeah, but on the clothes of the deceased.
Yeah, there was blood.
Man.
I mean, the car, when I mean the car, imagine a 90s style Mustang. So like the one, the blue one that JD drives to work. Just imagine the entire front of that, from the windshield to the nose of the car, being completely compacted.
Yeah.
Like, that's how much damage it did to the car. And then the box. I mean, the box literally had a small dent in it. But that box is protecting like an electrical hub or something.
Yeah, sure.
So it's supposed to be able to withstand that kind of impact. And it did. But it's still like, holy cow. The fact that the person was able to get out of the car to begin with and walk an eighth of a mile up the road before keeling over dead.
Yeah, so in that person's last moments, You got to know that they were not coherent, that they weren't 100% like awake and alert. When you go through an accident like that, especially if the impact is hard enough to where you lose consciousness, everything becomes dreamy, and you're not quite there anymore. Take it from me, I've been in some car accidents, and I've had a concussion, and I have been knocked out in car accidents before. So yeah, it's like you're not firing on all cylinders after a car accident like that. You're rocked like in the UFC when people get punched and they almost get knocked out. You get rocked, and it's hard for you to make smart, grown up, normal, everyday decisions. So in that time, that person probably wasn't thinking, oh yeah, this is the end. This is what I wanted. I wanted to kill myself, and I'm almost there. I'm almost dead. So I'll just sit here for a little while longer. They're going to be on an autopilot, and they're probably actually fighting for their life. They probably didn't want to die in that moment.
Oh yeah, it probably started out as them wanting to kill themselves, and then they got to that moment and they did it. But then it didn't kill them instantly. So I'm pretty sure their mind went from, well, crap, I probably need to go find someone to help me, and just started walking.
Yeah. And then succumb to their wounds.
Yep. And it's, like I said, it's extraordinary that they were even able to get out of the car.
Yeah.
The car was bad.
Mm.
But yeah, it was a constant reminder for months, just seeing the spots of dried red blood. You know what it looks like. It's like that brownish, maybe maroon color.
Yeah, dark.
Yeah, really dark. And it was just there. Like, it didn't matter how many times it rained. It was like soaked into the concrete.
Yeah. Yeah, wild. Over where I live, real close to where I live, there's a place called Suicide Bridge, and it's a small old bridge that was engineered or built in such a way where from one direction, the road leading up to it, it was kind of a convenient straight shot. And I think there's been more than 2 people to kill themselves driving against that bridge, like getting up to 80, 90 miles an hour and then just slamming into the side of it. They've since put guardrails and stop barrels and all sorts of other shit up because it apparently has become a problem. But can you imagine that somebody, like a community, has identified, if you want to kill yourself in a car wreck, this is how you do it, and this is the angle, the trajectory, and this is the speed you want to be hitting this fucking concrete monolith. It's the same bridge that Aubrey McClendon killed himself on. Do you know who Aubrey McClendon is?
I don't.
He was the owner of Chesapeake Energy.
Oh, the company that went bankrupt.
Yeah, but he got out of that company before it went bankrupt. But he had done something. He got caught in some scandal and he was going to be indicted or some shit. I don't remember all the particulars. But Aubrey McClendon was a millionaire, multimillionaire here in Oklahoma. And he was a big name. And he lived out close towards where I live. And apparently it got too hot for him. And instead of facing the music, he took his Lincoln Navigator or whatever SUV it was, and he put the pedal to the floor, and he hit the Suicide Bridge, and he took care of business. It killed him. He killed himself. They'd like to say that it was an accident, but dude, everybody fucking knows that he killed himself the way those other people had killed themselves on that fucking bridge, man.
Yeah, if it was an accident, speed would not necessarily be involved, because especially if people know that bridge is notorious for people committing suicide and how easy it is.
Yeah.
People that are thinking straight will not be doing
90 miles an hour
leading up to that bridge.
Right.
They would be taking it, making sure they can get across it without hitting anything.
Right.
So
or under it. It's
yeah.
the bridge is you go underneath it. It's a tunnel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's the bridge. The bridge part of it is above, but we drive. You got to drive underneath the bridge. So
Yeah.
it's the concrete, the thing that holds back all the dirt and holds up the bridge. But yeah, no normal people they drive 45 through there. People who are suicidal drive 80.
Yeah, because at 45 miles an hour, you might get hurt if you were to say like a tire were to pop and you just get thrown into that concrete. At 45 miles an hour, you're probably going to survive. You're probably going to be seriously hurt.
Yeah, maybe
but you're
sore.
Probably going to survive.
Yeah.
At 80 miles an hour, no. There's no way you were doing that, and you just lost control and ran into it. No, you wanted to die.
Yeah, Aubrey McClendon. Yeah, so we can't drive past that bridge or underneath that bridge without. I mean, we don't always just me and the wife. We don't vocalize it and say, "Hey, suicide bridge," but guarantee you, man, every time we do, we're thinking it.
Yeah, it's sad that a bridge has that kind of name because people actually use it to purposely commit suicide.
Yeah, it's it'd be great for a horror movie.
Yeah,
a great set piece.
Yeah,
man. Well, I'm sorry you saw a deceased person in the ditch like that, man. That's gotta leave a mark on your young mind,
It did. But it's also the reason why I don't really I'm not squeamish around blood or anything like that.
Sure.
For instance, just my wife had a C-section with our first kid.
Yeah.
And you're in the room with her and there's like a whole carpet or some sort of barrier so you can't see what they're doing. But after they pulled our daughter out and they were kind of sewing her back together, I'm that guy that now watches that kind of stuff. I was just sitting there watching it.
Yeah.
And her doctor was like, "This doesn't bother you?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "You know how many dads I've seen that see this just because they accidentally notice it and they go to throw up instantly?" I was like, "Probably a lot." I was like, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me to see the blood. It doesn't bother me to see the tissue like that. It's a conversation I've had with my wife, and she's like, "I would not be able to stand there and look at that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, maybe I'm sadistic or something. I don't know."
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, sometimes when you're talking like that, sometimes it's easy to say that you're made of sterner stuff, and maybe that's what it is. I know that I can do the same thing. I can look at the tissue. You mentioned tissue. I can see injuries. I have a problem. I have a major problem with the anticipation that I'm going to see somebody get injured. I don't like that at all. Like when somebody tries to show me a skateboarding video and I know it's going to be one of those where they get injured, I can't watch it. I don't want to watch it. I'm not interested in that.
So it's one of those you can stand the aftermath.
Yes, and
you cannot withstand the action.
I can't. I don't like the anticipation that I'm going to see somebody hurt themselves and then how they get hurt. Because I've been injured pretty severely quite a bit in my life. I've seen other people get hurt pretty bad in my life, and it's a horrible feeling, and I don't like it. It's almost like it hurts me to think about the pain and the impact and the way the bone breaks or whatever. It's like it really affects me, and I absolutely do not want to watch it. I don't want to see it. But if somebody's already injured, like they have fingers ripped off or they have arm ripped off or whatever, I can jump right in there and I can tourniquet, I can pack wound, I can do stitches, I can do all that stuff. I've been through EMT courses officially. I've had to work on people. I did ambulance rides. I rode with a guy who was a gunshot victim, and helped patch his wounds up in an ambulance. Worked in a hospital for a little while, doing medical stuff, helping people. I did firefighter stuff for a little while. I decided all that stuff wasn't really for me. I applied that knowledge and trauma aid stuff to the current work that I do now, where I was on the trauma team and we did training and we saw videos and we did whatever. And I've helped people that's been severely injured in our workplace, tips of fingers removed and stuff like that. I've helped quite a bit with stuff like that. So if somebody actually physically is injured in front of me, I have no problem seeing their bones on the inside or their tissues exposed on the inside. I have no problem. It doesn't make me sick. It doesn't make me queasy. I don't have to look away. I can get right in there and try to do whatever I need to do to help the people. But it's the anticipation leading up to things being okay to things being all of a sudden a trauma incident I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Well,
good man.
Is it time to shut her down?
Yeah, it's 7:51. Unless you think we can talk about a topic in a couple of minutes.
In a couple of minutes. Okay, yeah. So we can bring it back home. So we talked about RMT and how BSG continues to fumble the ball at the 10-yard line with RMT and cheating, and they adversely affect our normal gameplay. We talked about broken audio still, and they haven't fixed their audio plug-in Oculus, so you can't trust what you hear. And we talked pretty long about, do the AI bots suffer from the same simulation? And then, of course, some gruesome personal videos about dead people. But I wanted to quickly just hit, what are your thoughts about AI not having to play by the same rules that we are meant to play by? And one of those rules that we play by in the game is we have to make it to an extraction point. What do you think about the raid timer and AI not having to worry about a raid timer?
I don't know. So, the AI are there for us to challenge us in the game, and I understand they're trying to be realistic there.
Sure.
I think from a game standpoint, I don't think it really matters. I think from the realistic standpoint that EFT is all about, then it could have an issue.
Yeah.
That maybe they need to work on. So I think the AI are just there to challenge the player base. So I don't think putting a raid timer on them is such a big deal. Now, if there's something that you're thinking of that would potentially change that opinion, let me know. Like, what do you got?
What do I got? So right now as it stands, we enter a raid and we have 40 minutes to an hour or whatever the raid timer is to get out. So we have to go in, we have to survive, we have to do some function, we have to go from point A, which is our infill point, to point B, which is our exfil point. And the majority of the maps have maybe 2 to 5 exfil points for us, depending on where you spawn on the map. If you're on left side, then you extract on the right side. If you're on the right side, you extract on the left side, whatever. Why is there a raid timer at all? That's the first question. Why whenever we load into the game, why can we only play in that world for 30 minutes at a time or 45 minutes at a time?
So I think that has to do with more of like the server, to not have the servers running constantly, kind of give them a break in between. I say this because like when I play, for instance, Call of Duty, Warzone, it's like a 35-minute gameplay to get to the end. And I think that is legitimate just to give the server a break to kind of cool down for a minute and not just constantly overheat. Because I'm sure if you're just constantly on that server, and there's 12 people on that server accessing it at one time, give or take a little bit, and it's just trying to produce all this data, especially because Tarkov is really server side intensive. There's not a lot of information stored on like RPCs. It's a lot of server side things. So I think that raid timer is there to just help with the servers.
Okay, so we'll have to talk about the lore reasons why there's a raid timer, maybe in the next podcast if we do one. But why can't Tarkov adopt the Cycle Frontiers server system?
I don't know. I think a lot of that, again, it comes down to the cycle. I think a lot of that is on our PC. You know, it's like a 70 terabyte or gigabyte, whatever download, gigabyte, sorry.
Yeah.
Where Tarkov is, if you were to like delete Tarkov from your PC right now, it's about 8 gigabytes, 8 to 10 gigabytes. So I think that's a lot of the issue is with the cycle, the maps are already kind of pre-downloaded on your PC. Where I think with Tarkov, it's you've got some of it downloaded, but then it's pulling a lot from the server. I think that's why like queue times for Tarkov are so high, is because it's pulling so much information from the server, but not everyone has the same PC, not everyone has the same internet. Because there's a lot of times where, like when we're waiting for players, that's legit a sign that someone has a slower system and they're not up to that point where we're at on pulling data from the server.
Agreed.
So that's why we're waiting. But I don't know, unless they make the game more physical on the person's PC and not so much server based. I don't know if we'll ever have that like that instant load.
Okay, so that's not what I'm talking about. So the Cycle Frontier has a 6-hour server or whatever, and every 30 minutes to 40 minutes or whatever, they have a storm roll through that forces players either to A, extract, or B, hide in a place where you can't really move around and do much anything until the storm passes, or you get out and you face the bigger threats that are out in the world. It's like high risk, high reward sort of shit during the storm. But then after this cycle, this storm cycle, I think they let more players launch back into the map because they just now had an exodus of people trying to scramble to get out before the storm hits. What if the raid timer was just when the Black Division starts storming through the map? Like, maybe there's a few mortars that go off, maybe there's flares that pop up in the air to illuminate if it's dark or something, and there's this advanced military team that starts sweeping through, just clearing the sector. And if you can survive these guys, then you're at the beginning of the next cycle of the raid timer. Like, they come through and they clear the fucking map, and maybe they don't get everywhere, just like in the Cycle Frontier. You know, the enemies out there don't go inside the buildings and kill you. But what if that's the reason for the raid timer, is to force some players to extract, to force some players to hunker down in a hiding place, to reset some of the loot, and to provide a reason why there's a raid timer and in-world lore as to why scavs don't just like scramble to the exit when you got to get to the exit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
either.
I don't know if it's because the developers for Cycle are better developers.
Smarter. They've thought of these things.
Probably actually went to school for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think Nikita and his group of people went to school for game development. It's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. I think they're just dude bros living the life, man.
Yeah, and making a bunch of money doing it.
Yeah, they
people off at the same time.
Yeah, I think they just struck gold. They stumbled into success, and they're just reaping the rewards of it.
Yep.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
So.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll pick it back up next time. We'll elaborate a little bit more whenever that may be in the near future. Grizz, I very much appreciate having you on my podcast again. Thank you for taking the time. You're a wonderful friend, and you always really help me flesh out some of the thoughts, and you bring some really good points to the conversation. And I appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
No problem, man. You have a good day.
I'm going to try.
I'll probably see you tomorrow.
Yeah, man. You have a good day, too, and enjoy your wonderful family. And I guess that's it for the Protodead podcast, talking about some Escape from Tarkov. If anybody's got any comments they would like to leave a comment down below. Let's start a discussion. Did we get anything wrong? Do you think we left something out? Maybe you can articulate something a little better than we can articulate it in the heat of the moment during the recording. If you like this sort of stuff, give me a big thumbs up. If you hate this sort of stuff, then fucking hit the dislike button. Subscribe for some future content. Share this video with a buddy. It helps me out a whole lot, and it helps spread the development and the word and the ideas of Battlestate games and Escape from Tarkov. Let's be involved in the community during the development of this video game. I've been Protodead, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip-flop.